We're rolling? Awesome. Okay, everybody, I'm Joe McCray. I run a company called Learn Security Online. It's a computer training company. And my favorite subject is SQL injection. I'm a pen tester by trade, but SQL injection, I have no idea why, but for me, it's just one of those vulnerabilities that it's not like cross-site scripting where I need to trick somebody. You know, it's kind of like the old days of hacking. I kind of feel like it's me against that server. You know, I've really got to go for it. So what we're going to cover here is, depending on the audience, will kind of determine how technical we're going to go. So generally what I do is I cover the background for SQL injection, basic attack methods, and then I like to go into this, what the fuck. For me, as a tester, I run into that all the time. It's not like a classic 1 = 1 to get into a site anymore. It's not, you know, just insert this tick and all of a sudden the whole database drops anymore. You know, it's funny errors, it's stored procedures like you're injecting into a stored procedure. So it's a little bit more complex. So depending on, you know, kind of audience reaction, if you guys are looking at me like you're kind of bored, we'll move a little faster. If you're looking at me like, bro, I have no idea what the hell a select statement is, we'll go a little slower. Cool? All right, so in case anybody hasn't figured it out, I'm black. What I would prefer that you do is yell stuff out at me, okay? You know, I grew up in a loud house, you know, so really like yell stuff out. You don't need to raise your hand. Sorry, I don't have any good home training. So if you're looking at something on the slide and you're kind of like, dude, that's bullshit, say it, okay? Don't be like politically correct with me. I was, is it just me, or did he like really not realize I'm up here? Like, you know, did it just... Okay, so for real, guys, you know, if we're going through stuff and it's, you know, a little boring, you kind of, hey, I already know that stuff, you know, kind of nod your head so I know to pick it up and keep it moving. Cool? All right, let's do this. All right. Every time I submit to these talks, I always do this talk called SQL Injection for Mere Mortals, and it never gets accepted. Never. No one ever wants to know the basics. And I always run into this because every time I'm teaching SQL injection, I can usually tell people don't have good basics. They really need the SQL injection for mere mortals. But I guess it's just not a cool sounding talk. You know what I mean? So, I'm not going to teach you the basics of SQL. Sucks to be you. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to teach you the basics of SQL injection. Sucks to be you. I'm not doing it because this is advanced. So if you buy me a rum and coke tonight, I'll teach you whatever the hell you want to learn. It's all about the alcohol, okay? All right. You've got 3 traditional classes of SQL injection. You've got in-band, out-of-band, inferential. I'm sure you guys are good. You can read the slides. So in-band, data is extracted using the same channel that's used to inject. Out-of-band, data is retrieved using some sort of other channel like DNS or HTTP, you know, the sweet, sexy stuff, you know? And then inferential is, you know, either asking questions that are true-false questions or based on time. You know, you're like, hey, dude, database, if you're really the system administrator, can you wait 10 seconds before you give me a valid page? Okay. All right, so let's look at this. In-band injection, like I said, it comes over the same channel. This is classic. You know, ID = 1 or 1 equals, and then you're going to say convert int user. And then you'll actually get an error saying syntax error converting the invarchar value Joe into a column of data type int. So essentially you're asking the database, hey, can you take this user and convert it to a data type of integer? And the database is going to be like, dude, you can't convert a string into an integer. The hell are you doing, bro? Okay, but when it does that, it actually executes that query for you, and you'll get the result of that user query in the error. Okay, this is the most classic, it's traditional, and this is actually going away. Okay. All right, out of band. Okay, everybody likes the sexy stuff. Okay, I'm doing SQL injection, I'm getting all my responses back over DNS. Right, it just sounds cool, don't it? You know, not like there's really a real point in life to actually do it, but it sounds cool, don't it? You're like, dude, I was owning your box, and you know, while I'm pulling all the credit card data off your database, I got it all back over my DNS server. Dude, you suck, right? Okay, there are some extreme cases where this is actually necessary, but generally in my pen testing, I haven't found where I've really had to use a lot of out-of-band stuff. It does work. It is sexy. There are cases where you can actually get more data, you know, per query via out of band. It's generally been the only time that I've really kind of felt like I needed to do it. Okay. All right, inferential. Inferential is what you're starting to see a lot. Tools like SQL Map, SQL Ninja, tools that essentially ask the database a question. So in this case, this is time-based SQL injection. So you're seeing that it's going to say, if not select system user is SA, wait for 10 seconds. So now what happens is you don't get error messages. You know, there is no ODBC error. You're not getting an error message. So you're asking the database, hey, bro, if you're running as system administrator, wait 10 seconds before you show me the page. Okay? So I run into this where a lot of people have verbose errors turned off. And this is generally the attack technique I use the most in those cases. All right. What about tools? Scanner monkeys in the room? Anybody? Who's like, I'm a consultant. I run tools. Right? I was on a call with a customer one time, and I swear, he was like, well, you know, we're really looking at hiring a pen tester, but, you know, we use Backtrack. Oh, so you're a fucking scanner monkey, so that means you're a good pen tester, right? Awesome, I get that. All right, so let's look at the basic tools. Now, I'm sure that some of you guys have awesome security budgets. I don't. So I only use these open source tools. So I can't even say that, but Melioc, you know, work with me, man. I don't know what it is. But Roloff from SensePost wrote that one. Okay, and are you noticing that that one does error-based? That's one type of SQL injection. WPoison, it's another tool. It does error-based. SQL Map, most of us are familiar with SQL Map. It does blind, true-false blind, and union-based if you specify. Now, Wapiti does error-based. W3AF does error-based and blind. Peros does error-based and blind. SQID only does error. Has anybody kind of figured this out? What am I shooting for here? Come on, work with me, people. God, dog, will y'all get a little louder? Okay. Error-based, almost everybody uses error-based. Very few tools, and at this particular point in time, no tool does all three methods of SQL injection. So like the thing says, Joe, I'm sick of this shit. What the hell do you mean by error-based, blind, and union? Okay, so just like we said, error-based, you're attacking the database, and it actually causes an error. Union-based, you're actually appending another select statement to the URL. So it says ID equals 5 in the URL. You're going to say ID equals 5, space, union, all. You're going to join the select statement from the website to your own select statement. And now you can extract data that way. And then blind, we already talked about that, extracting data via true, false, or time-based SQL injection. Quick things that are important for me. My methodology. How do I do it? First thing for me, identify the injection. Either a tool or manual. Key thing is you need to identify the injection. Then you need to determine the injection type. Is it ID equals 5? You know, page equals feedback? Okay. In other words, is what's actually being requested a string or an integer? And this is really important because if it's a string, you need to use a tick. If it's an integer, you don't need to use a tick. Super, super important, especially when we get later into this talk and we start talking about IDS evasion and WAF evasion. This is really, really big. The next thing is, how do I actually do my attacks? I always go for error-based first. Always go for error-based first. It's the fastest, okay? It's the easiest. If that doesn't work and I can't get verbose errors, then I try for union. And if that doesn't work, last case, worst case, last resort, then I use blind. You're going to find that blind is so ungodly slow. You know, you're pulling data out of the database one bit at a time. I mean, literally. Huh? And noisy. Yeah, but I mean, does it really matter? What admin do you know really looks at his logs? If they're growing up. Okay, so why the focus on manual testing? So now that you understand that there's three primary types of SQL injection, can you understand why being able to test for SQL injection manually is so important? Most scanners only look for one type of injection. All right, so we're going to stop here. Everybody with me so far? Going too fast, going too slow, what? Kind of good pace. All right. It's like, I can do this, man. All right. So let's jump on to the next thing. Integer-based SQL injection. Integer-based, do I need the tick? No. String-based? Yes. So when you're looking this, you immediately need to figure out, is it asking for a string or an integer? And if it's asking for a string, that's when I need my tick. All right. We're going to jump on MS SQL syntax. The syntax per database is a little bit different, but once you kind of get the feel for one, it's really not that hard to transition to the next type. Okay? We'll cover a real little bit of MySQL. If you want to talk about Oracle syntax and all that kind of stuff, hit me up after the talk. I'll fill you in, show you all the good places to get that kind of stuff. All right, so error-based we've already talked about. I like to give people this because this is really good for extracting data. What are the key things you want to ask for? Who's the user? What's the database name? What's the server name? What version is it running? These are great things, okay? And these are my little generic ones. I kind of just go right through them. Okay? Generally what I find in pen testing is when I look at the previous year's report, a lot of people will stop at just showing that there's an SQL error. I go, see, look, there's an ODBC error. Okay? Now, for me, is that kind of a punk kind of move? Why is it a punk kind of move? Come on. You're not actually proving it, okay? The other thing that I've run into is guys who will say, well, you can generate the error, but it's not injectable. Yeah, right, bro. Yeah, right, bro. That's kind of like a girl who says, well, I don't usually do this, right? You're kind of like, yeah, whatever, man. Come on. Okay? All right, so union-based SQL injection, this is what I was talking about where you're adding the union select statements to it. So the first thing I'll do is I'll try for error-based. If error-based doesn't work, I try for a union. If I add union all select, there's actually a typo there. Yeah, that's right. So union select all 1, and then I should get an error the same, hey bro, you have to have the correct number of columns if you're going to do a select statement. Then you go, oh, okay, cool. So I just keep adding union all 1, 2, 3 until I finally get no error message. When I finally get a valid page, now I know that I have the correct number of columns. And then all of the specific functions, user, DB name, version, and all that, now I can put those in. Okay, blind. Blind takes forever. This is why we don't do it unless we absolutely have no choice. So you ask the database, hey database, if the user length is equal to 1, can you wait 10 seconds? Now it comes back immediately. Okay, well, user length isn't equal to 1. Okay, hey database, if the database user length is equal to 2, can you wait 10 seconds? Is anybody starting to see that this is taking a while? What if you have to like dump a database with like 3 million records? Yeah, awesome. Okay. So in these cases, this is why I try not to do blind, because it takes so freaking long. But if you do, you have no choice, well then great, go for blind. Okay. All right. You always need to break out your handy dandy hex, ASCII, decimal chart. You're going to need this a lot. Okay. Encoding is going to be huge with the web stuff. You always want to keep this kind of chart handy. I'm a geek, don't get me wrong, okay, but I don't have this stuff memorized. Sorry. Okay? You ever like talk to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, you know, that's not me. So I have a chart. Better yet, I have a mouse pad. Okay, so blind SQL injection where you're extracting the user. So you're saying, hey, if the first letter of the character for user is an A, can you wait 10 seconds? Now how long would this take, guys? Because you're going to be like, is it an A? Is it a B? Is it a C? Is it a D? Now here in D, it comes back after 10 seconds. Is this taking a while? This sucks. Okay. All right. And then we immediately try the second character. Okay. Is it an A? Is it a B? Is it, oh God, this sucks. Okay. All right. And we all the way get down to it's an O. So now we know that the database user is DBO. Man, that really sucked, didn't it? Okay, this sucks. All right, So MySQL syntax, I'm going to kind of skip through some of this. I won't dig real deep into this. But generally with MySQL, there is error-based, but most of the times you're going to find that you're going to have to use union and blind with MySQL. So let's jump on it. All right. Key things that you're going to need to know with blind. You're going to need to know the number of tables, number of columns, column names, path to the website. A lot of times you have to guess table names. Attacking MySQL kind of sucks. Yeah? Nowhere near as much fun as attacking MS SQL. All right, so one of the things that I really like to use is the order by operator. So I'll say ID equals 1, order by 10. And then if it gives me the error message, unknown column 10 in order by clause, then I know, okay, it's less than 10 columns. So now I'll half it. So I'll say order by 5, and now it returns a valid page. So now I know it's more than 5 columns, but less than what? I'm glad you guys are listening. Way to go. Okay, so you keep doing this until you figure out how many columns you have, and this works for MS SQL as well. All right, now once you actually come up with the correct number of columns, now you have to try and figure out how we can get this database to tell us what is the column number we're going to use to pull data out of it. So generally what I do is I'll change that ID to a negative number or the word null. Now doing that causes the rest of the columns to try to display. So usually what happens is you'll get some numbers in the middle of the screen. Just looks crazy. You got a blank page with like a 5 and a 2 in the middle of the screen. You're kind of like, okay, this website's about to get the beat down. So this is an example of a website, and you see that I put the null in there, and it comes back and it tells me 6 and 3. So you're like, okay. So in column number 3, do you see how I put user? And in column number 6, you see how I put version. And now the data displays right to the middle of the screen. So MySQL version 5.0.45, and the user is WS user at localhost. Okay, so now you're proving that you can extract data from it. Okay, and then the key things that I like to use with MySQL. I like to use user, I like to use database, version, and data dir. What's the directory where all the actual MySQL files are stored? Okay, good, 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 good. Okay, quick little tidbit. When you're using database and DB_name with the parentheses, if you actually change that, I should have put that on the slide, but I didn't. If you actually put a 0 in the parentheses, that'll give you the first database. Then you can change it to a 1. You can get the next database. You can change it to a 2, and you can keep iterating through all of the databases on the box. I really should have put that in the slides. Bad speaker. Okay? So, we've already got this. How do we get the user? How do we get the server name? Okay. Oh, there it is. It is in the slides. God, dog. Awesome. I'm a good speaker. Sure. You are getting the username of the database user that's currently accessing the database from the website.
But we're talking about how you can just change the number in the database segment, down the bottom.
Right, that user needs to be able to determine that these other databases are on the box. Right, so you'll have cases where you can see, okay, there's 40 databases on this box. I can only access 2 of them. I've run into that a lot. But again, proving to a customer that you really can extract data. And the other thing that you can do, and we'll talk about this a couple of slides later, is you can brute force the SA account. So all via SQL injection, you can brute force the SA account. So let's say I can enumerate 15 databases, and I'm running as user Joe instead of user SA or DBO. I'll just brute force the database, crack out a good 12 million word dictionary. Remember, admins don't look at logs, and go for it. Okay, so the union we already talked about. Changing it to a null we already talked about. Okay, and this is the true-false blind. This is actually the method that SQL map uses. Okay, now you have to keep this in mind. SQL map is making the determination by saying if 1 equals 1, I get a valid page. If 1 equals 2, I get some sort of error page or invalid page. So this is why you'll run into cases where you can trigger some sort of error, and then you do your 1 equals 1, your 1 equals 2, and you get the same page. So now SQL map tells you it's not injectable. Does that suck? Yes, that sucks. Okay. All right. The blind, time-based blind, I use the wait for delay method. Okay. And you're going to notice how you can ask it what version you're running, if you're running this SA, or if the current user is a member of the sysadmin group. Okay. Good things you can do. Okay. All right. SQL injection in the real world. Who's pen testing now? Who's running into SQL injection? Does it suck? You're like, God, dude, I'm trying to pull out this error and it keeps giving me funky errors. Anybody deal with that? All right, so. All right, late at night, I'm drinking rum and Coke when I'm pen testing. This is me, okay? And, I listen to YouTube and I watch a lot of music and all that kind of stuff. And, I get bitter. I don't care if you judge me. I get bitter. Is it just me? Or is it kind of jacked up that little John makes millions of dollars a year and the guy only has a vocabulary of like 2 words? Does that bother anybody? Like, I'm like pen testing banks and like breaking into multi-billion-dollar systems and all that kind of junk. And I'm like, dude, I'm not making that kind of money. Like, God. So I'm a shirt and tie kind of guy. Don't let the con thing fool you. All day I'm suited up, sooty booty, right? So should I trade in all that crap, for a mouthful of gold teeth, some dreads, baggy pants, 40 ounce, and a fat blunt? That's my boy. Okay, so what the fuck, right? I run into this. Okay, so I'm a little bitter, so we're going to own littlejohn.com. So we've got littlejohn.com/littlejohn.asp. Okay, and the parameter passing is lil equals, and then we're going to insert our tick. So we get our Microsoft OLE DB error. All right, cool. So now I'm ready to go do my thing, go extract the data and all this kind of stuff. So I say, okay, convert int user, exactly what I taught you guys, right? And then it gives you a really weird error. Incorrect syntax near right parent. Is it just me or are coders smoking crack? What the hell is up with that? Man, I'm not lying. I think I must have spent 3 days on this. I'm reading the MSDN and all that. And who actually had to sit down and read Microsoft documentation? Ugh. You're like, good God, what is going on with this? So I don't know. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to put an extra right parentheses in it. And it worked. Shoot, 3 freaking days and that's all it was? Like, my God. So it's stuff like that where you might actually have a tool that determines that it's vulnerable but can't extract data because it doesn't realize that you actually need an extra right parenthesis. And this is why you'll have pen testers who tell you, well, there's no need to fix that vulnerability. It's not really exploitable. Okay? They just don't, they actually have a life. They're not like me. Okay? I will sit here all night with my rum and Coke and I will try to figure this out, right? All right. Next one. All right, so I'm trying to get the database name, and it's working. Try to get the version, and it's working. Okay, is the database enumerated? Yeah. Is the database enumerated? Yeah. This was a lot more funny when I was drinking. Okay, next one I run into, PHP. So I'm pulling out data, just like I showed you guys, right? Union all select, % 20 is a space, for those of you who don't know. Okay, but everybody knows. They're like, dude, I fucking know that. Okay, fine, smarty pants. Okay, so union all select 1. Union all select 1, 2. Then I get this error. Text or in-text or image data type cannot be selected as distinct. Anybody else back there like, dude, I don't know. Exactly, man. Coders need help, bro. Coders need help. So, this is when Google Translator comes in helpful because I found some guy who was running into the same thing on a Chinese website. So translated, dude was like, yeah, if you just do this text hello, it'll let you keep enumerating the database. I'm like, okay, that makes a whole lot of frickin' sense. Okay. All right, so let's keep on doing that, right? Okay, so now I'm doing the same thing. I get down to 8 and 9, and it tells me, oh, operand type clash. Okay, text is incompatible with int. Oh, this sucks. Well, I tried my hello thing. That didn't work. Like, dang. You ever like working on something, you're like, oh, I got this. Oh, shit, that doesn't work. Huh? Okay, so I threw in the word null, and it worked. Okay, so key tips. Always use union with all because of images. And I had to realize that when they're talking about in text, it's cases where they have like actual images in the database, like thumbnails. Okay, you're like, oh, dude, okay, I get it. All right, so use null in union injections for most data types instead of trying to guess, is it string, is it, data, is it an integer, is it in text and all that. Just throw null in there. Okay, that usually works a lot. You'll notice when SQL map actually tests for union-based SQL injection, it just says union null, 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 so that it can try to get by these types of errors until you run into that, text, in text, image stuff. All right. Privilege escalation. Okay? Anybody read Litchfield's work? Litchfield, this dude is a freaking genius. Litchfield is sick. I can't believe this. So he figures out that this open row set, SQL OLEDB, you can actually make a connection to the database and specify a username and password to see if it allows you to connect to it. Okay? So now we use this to determine if we can brute force. We just get our dictionary and we keep substituting that password. So you see I have Joe all caps, Joe lowercase, Joe with a 0. And this is literally how you brute force. You just keep iteratively asking it, oh hey, I'm trying to make a connection to the database. I'm trying to connect as user SA with this password. Okay, database is like, nope, that's not it. Hey, I'm trying to make a connection to the database as SA with this password. Okay, and you just keep iterating through it. Okay, and that's how you brute force the SA account. All right, next thing is now that you've found the correct username for the SA account, now you can use exec commands. So you do the same thing with open row set, and you say, okay, exec master sp add server role member SA, and you take the current user and add them to the sysadmins group. Okay, sweet. Okay, all right.
Actually, how does that one work? The user that the database is running at should not have permission to access the local user admin.
This is the password.
Right.
So if you found the correct password, you can specify it right here.
You connect the database as SA, and then you
Specify the password.
add the current user, not the one authenticated, but the one where it's running as two server.
Dude, you rock. I wish I was like Dan Kaminsky. I'd give you beer. That good explanation. Awesome. Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. Here you go, bro.
So whenever you authenticate to the database, you're going in as SA. Once you get the password, you authenticate to it, you run the stored procedure as Joe, and then you add the current website account into the sysadmin group.
You think you'd like that? I'm kind of wondering about you, bro. Okay. All right, so how do we do this in MS SQL? So you do the exact same thing, and you add that user, okay? Or you're going to find that it's a little bit different in 2005 versus 2000. So the next slide kind of breaks it out a little bit more. All right. So you're going to declare this variable result, declare OLER, and you're going to throw in this shell, right? And then we're going to execute this W script. Okay, now select this result, and we're going to raise this user, and we're going to execute this method and see if, as SA, it can ping 127.0.0.1 with a count of 8. So now the reason that we're doing this is because we want to see if we can ping ourselves, then we're running as SA. And then if it takes 8 seconds for the page to come back, we know that it executed the ping. Everybody with me? You guys rock. Okay? All right, so syntax in SQL Server 2005 is a little bit different. Okay, so you just say sp configure, show advanced options, reconfigure exec master. Okay, that's really all it is. Okay? All right, filter evasion. Okay, this stuff really isn't quite so black and white. Okay, when you're dealing with filters, you really kind of go with your gut and you just kind of keep messing with it until you see that you bypass the filter. Okay, so the first one is client-side filtering. This is some coder idiot who's decided that it would be a great idea to filter our database input with JavaScript that's going to display on the local page. This makes a lot of sense, right? This makes a lot of sense. So because JavaScript's rendered on the local browser, the attacker has access to all of the filtering that you're trying to do, right? Like, does that pass the common sense test? No. Okay, so this is easy. You can save the page locally, remove the offending JavaScript or VB script. You can use a local proxy like Paros, WebScarab, Burp Sweep, any of these kinds of tools that find this type of stuff. Okay, well, next thing, restrictive blacklist. Sometimes you see coders who think that they're going to stop SQL injection by saying, you know what, I'm going to use a filter. You're not going to use things like less than, greater than. You're not going to use ticks. You're not going to do any of that stuff. Okay, guys, so which type of SQL injection requires the tick? String-based. So if they're asking for an integer, we don't need the tick, right? Okay, so that filter worked great, huh? The next thing is, instead of saying 1 equals 1, because they're not going to let us use an equal sign, well, is 1 kind of like 1? 2 kind of like 2? Awesome. Bypass that filter. Okay, signature-based IDS. Guys, I hate IDSs. I hate IPSs. I was an IDS analyst for a couple of years, so my hatred is justified. Okay? All right. So, break out your chart. Let's do this. Okay, so you grab yourself your first snort signature. Everybody can read a snort sig? All right. So, alert, TCP, any IP address, any port number, going to our web servers on our web server ports that has tick or 1 equals 1. That's a great freaking signature, isn't it? How do we bypass that, guys? Different numbers. Is 8 like A? Right? Is 9 like 9? Okay. So what if it's integer based? Do we even need the tick? So the whole signature fails. Okay? All right. So why do we have these signatures? This is catch idiots. That's exactly what I used to say when I was an IDS guy. I would say, we only catch idiots. We catch people who deserve to be caught. We catch people who don't know where logs are stored on an IIS server. We catch people who don't know how to, you know, they TFTP a file down and they have these 0-byte TFTP files in the root directory. You know, we catch idiots. We catch people who deserve, it's like a Darwinian kind of thing. Like, we got to get them off the planet, dude. Okay? All right. Yes, this is my opinion of IDS. Okay? The guy's like, I got one! Yes! I got an attacker. All right. So now, we got a little bit more complex of an IDS signature. Okay? I'm going to use PCRE, Perl compatible regular expressions, baby. Okay? Don't mess with the regex, right? This is when you like breaking out your real kung fu, huh? So we're looking for the word and or the word or, and we're looking for 1 equals 1. And we're not even going to let you use those comments. See the dash dash? Can't use those. Or the slash asterisk? Can't use those. Okay? So how do we bypass this one? IDS signatures suck, don't they? Okay? So you're seeing the 2 equals 2. Percent sign 2D is how we equate to the dash. Okay? Is this looking for hex? No, it is not. Okay? So now if you have open source tools like SQL map and all these types of tools, you can actually go in and just change this in your tool so that it uses 9 equals 9 and percent sign 2D instead of the hyphen. Okay, and that's how you get by IDSs. Okay, learn something, huh? Snort normalizes the traffic. This is correct. This is correct. Snort normalizes the traffic. Okay? But what you can do is you can use things like UTF-7, UTF-8, UTF-16. Because a lot of people don't have that type of thing turned on because it's too processor intensive. All right. A little bit more complex of a rule. Okay, so now we've got to select from. We've got the dashes. Okay, how do we beat this? What's my bypass technique? I converted the whole thing to hex. Okay? So now we look at the next one. Here's the union all. We just converted the entire thing to hex. Okay? Next one. You know, a lowercase s and an up. Go ahead.
Are you ever going to convert to UTF-8, stuff like that, from the get-go?
Yeah, Gary O'Leary has a Unicode encrypting tool. It's like a couple slides down. You'll see what I have for it. Yeah. Okay, so also there's a ton of websites, you know, ASCII convert and all that kind of stuff. You know, those are good websites for that sort of thing. Okay, so are you guys noticing that the S or percent sign 73 and signature 6 is the lowercase s and the lowercase e? And if you look down in signature 7, he's got the lowercase s, percent sign 73, and percent sign 53 for the lowercase s and the capital S. Okay, so these are really, really good. So how do we bypass that? Use a different encoding type. Okay. All right, so what I like to say about this, IDS evasion is pretty easy. Just ask Joe to teach you how. Okay, and it's just a whole bunch of encoding. It's comment injection where I've inserted comments in there. Okay, a lot of that stuff works. Now, for those of you who play with web application firewalls, this type of technology is getting a lot better because they have things where they compress white space, they normalize traffic. WAFs are a lot tougher. Okay? All right, so this kind of takes us into the next step. How do we identify web application firewalls? Web application firewalls, in my experience, have been surprisingly easy to find over determining if there's an IDS or IPS solution in place. So web application firewalls, they're all kinds of quick to tell you, dude, I'm a WAF. Don't do that. Okay? So our same characters, you know, single tick, quotes, less than, question mark, you know, that kind of stuff, a WAF will identify itself immediately. Okay? So here's an example of me throwing a GET request with curl, grepping for 501. So when you get 501 method not implemented, that's mod security. Okay? So boom, figured that one out. So if you throw a tick and in the HTTP header you see no hacking, okay, that's web night. Okay? Told you, like, really stealthy, huh? Okay. All right. That page wasn't supposed to be gone. All right. This is Gary O'Leary's tool. Okay. So it's got the Unicode, and you can see how I just throw like a script alert and it automatically converts it for me. This is great for IDS evasion. Okay. So you can take all of your different signatures. Another website that I don't have in my slides is PHP IDS. They have a demo tool where you can try all of your injections and cross-site scriptings, and they will let you know what regexes it's actually detecting or bypassing or whatever the case may be. Okay, so here when you get stuff like this, it's an error code 200, but the actual message says condition intercepted. So in this case, it's trying to throw off automated scanners because when it does something, it gets an error code 200. Instead of some sort of OLE, ODBC error, right? Okay, but you can actually see that it's just giving back 200 OKs. Okay. Man, all this wasn't... All right, so .NET Defender. .NET Defender is what I ran into as a WAF in my most recent bank pen test. And I had never heard of .NET Defender before this. So if we're getting this on tape, you know, hey, sorry I haven't notified the vendor. So I was looking at this, and you know, they give you the big nasty gram. See that? Look, .NET Defender blocked this. You suck. And I was kind of like, okay, I guess I suck. Okay, blocked my request. Lo and behold, bypassing .NET Defender really wasn't all that hard. .NET Defender is looking for the tick for its SQL injection checks. Oh, that was great. Awesome. Yep, you rock. Yeah, buddy. So there's me, and conveniently, this $16 billion financial institution has its database running as user DBO. It just doesn't get any better. Like, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, really. You can't make this stuff up. So, you know, the little .NET Defender thing, it's gone now. I'm not seeing him anymore. So I said, hey, remember that user thing I showed you guys how to do? Now, if you're noticing, you can't really see it, but I had to use that Gary O'Leary Unicode encoding thing to make it do this, because when I just put in regular select statements, it would catch that. So I'd use the Unicode encoding thing that I showed you a few slides back, okay, and then did a select version, and he says, yeah, dude, I'm running SQL Server 2005, okay, I'm running on a box that's Server 2003, gives it up like a cheap $2 hoe, right? Just like, too easy, here you go. Take it, dude, take it. You want me to turn around too? Takes it, okay? All right, then after that, I was like, you know what? Hey, while I'm here, let's grab the admin hashes, yeah? Yeah, love .NET Defender. All right, and that is my talk, guys. I give you some basic references for SQL injection, some tutorials. Pentest Monkey, he has the best SQL injection cheat sheets. His cheat sheets rock. Okay, and that is my talk. I will take questions now. Any questions? What's up, man?
Not very familiar with some of this stuff. Could you,
That's okay, neither
like
am
on
I.
the app, say like the web application firewall or
Sure,
like
sure,
IPS, like snort, could you put a definition in there for saying, okay, don't let any traffic through that says something like Microsoft OLE DB error or something like
As an
that?
outbound filter, right?
Yeah.
Right, but the issue is that's only going to detect error-based SQL injection. So what about union-based and blind, where you're not getting ODBC errors? So that's going to nail you. So you're right. The problem is because
But
there's
not
three
all of them,
types.
just that one type.
Exactly.
Cool, thanks.
Exactly.
When you're doing the pen test,
Yeah.
how do you attack against sites that are using prepared statements?
Well, prepared statements and parameterized queries usually are not vulnerable to SQL injection.
Yeah.
So that is the correct way to try to stop
Right.
SQL injection.
But you're trying to impress somebody, so are you working towards business logic errors where you're not actually triggering an error within the code itself, but within how the application was designed?
Okay, business logic testing is part of any typical web app pen test. This is specifically just SQL injection, so they're not using parameterized queries, structured statements. A lot of people do try to say, oh, if I just use stored procedures, that's not injectable. That's not true. Stored procedures are generally injectable, and that's when you have to do all these, inserting semicolons and adding extra statements and all that kind of stuff. So if they're using parameterized queries, like you said, prepared statements, generally you're not going to find it vulnerable to SQL injection. And then you'll find yourself having to do more stuff like business logic. Like have they added a new reporting engine to the website? You'll find like funky little things. They've got like some sort of Crystal Reports plugin that's got parameters passed to it. Maybe you can mess with that. But that's just general web app testing. I don't know if that's making any sense at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Anybody else? Rum and Coke? Teach you whatever you want. Yeah, that's my boy. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the talk. If you want the slides and all that kind of stuff, you'll have to just holler at me offline. I'll give you the slides, email them to you or whatever the case may be. That's my man right there, okay? Yeah, I have to give him the slides since he runs the place. Okay? All right, guys, thanks for dealing with me.